Let me ask you something. When my wife's father has introduced me to stogies, what is she gonna say? She's not gonna say my father made a mistake, because her father never makes a mistake. So therefore, it is okay. I can smoke stogies around her. I can smoke stogies in my house. First of all, because her father introduced me to stogies, and second of all, because I'm a stud. I'm ballsy. I don't take no shit from anyone. I smoke my stogie anywhere I want. I don't have to find a hideout place like you.
Today I'm going to talk about a film called Pumping Iron. It's a film directed by George Butler and Robert Fiore, and it's a film that looks at the competitive sport of bodybuilding. In the film, it explores different bodybuilders chasing after such titles as Mr. Olympia and Mr. Universe. The first two bodybuilders that we get introduced to are Mike Katz and Ken Waller. Mike is a bit timid and Ken is much more of an alpha, and this collision plays out in such a way that we sense there's a developing tension between them, even though it seems like Mike is unaware that there is any tension to begin with. It seems Ken is willing to do whatever it takes to win, which means at one point hiding Mike's shirt. In one sequence, Mike is frantically pacing, searching for his shirt and coming up short. Both Mike and Ken eventually pose, and Ken ends up being the victor. But it's kind of a sad scene when we see Mike sort of congratulating Ken, even though little does he know that Ken was the one that hid his shirt, and probably caused him to be a little bit off-kilter when posing in front of the judges. As far as documentary goes, it chooses to go the cinema verite route, meaning that the filmmakers had to have a sense of the edit as they were shooting. They needed to get plenty of coverage within everything that they were shooting, and it meant being at the right place at the right time. It meant getting certain expressions which will move the story forward or add stakes. It was important for them to shoot in terms of sequences as opposed to getting, one killer shot that may or may not have made it in the final cut. With the camera movement and the cinema verite included, it creates sort of relationships as a camera reframes from one subject to another. But the main rivalry within this film is Arnold Schwarzenegger and Lou Ferrigno. Because Arnold has won the past 6 times, it seems like he's on top of the hill. While you're watching this film, you get a sense of his psychology. Bodybuilding seems to be a sport that judges the symmetry and the depth of each muscle group. Arnold's mind and his self-esteem certainly put him in a position where he was the reigning champion for so many years. And with guys like Mike Katz, and as you also come to learn, Lou Ferrigno, they're competitors that try their hardest, but they seem to fall short every single time. And maybe that is more to do with the fact that they have some insecurities that they're dealing with, and with Arnold, he seems to be a little bit more self-assured in that department. What you have in this film is a calm, cool, relaxed Arnold Schwarzenegger and a very brooding and soft-spoken Lou Ferrigno. And the two play off each other within that, where Ferrigno his life goal is to top Arnold off or to dethrone Arnold as the king, as Mr. Olympia. Even though Arnold seems to be someone that is a bit arrogant and can go overboard in his cockiness within his abilities, we still latched onto him nevertheless because of his charisma and because of his charm. I found it very difficult to side with Lou Ferrigno in his pursuit to be champion. As much of an underdog as he was and as he was painted, there were just moments that put Arnold over the edge just from his comedic timing. The two examples that stood out for me in this regard were when he was asked by a reporter if he drinks milk, and his response is that milk is for babies. Real men drink beer. I mean, just the brevity and the comeback on that was all time. And then the other moment is one that gets cited most often is when he describes what the pump is to him, and the pump being the swelling of veins that one gets when they work out quite intense, that the blood that rushes through their veins starts pumping at a very accelerated rate, and for him it equates to having sex with a woman. And in the way that he phrases it is that he comes in the gym and he comes with the woman, so he's coming all night and day. And I think just the way that he says all of this so matter-of-factly is kind of what makes it funny. If it seemed like he was trying really hard to make us laugh, I think that would have deterred us from liking him as a character. But the fact that he said it with such sincerity, I think is what kind of worked for us to feel, or for him to have this like magnetic force, or for us to have a magnetic attachment towards him. This was kind of the blueprint for his persona that he would later adopt when it came to movies like The Terminator and just like the 90s run of action star films that he was in, whether it's Commando, Predator, The Running Man. The just use of one-liners, quips, combine that with the fact that his physique is monstrous, I think it just really put him on the map. And so within all these conflicts amongst the bodybuilding community, you realize after the fact that it was all manufactured, that the filmmakers took certain liberties with the drama within this film and staged a lot of what you actually see or kind of believe to be true. And it goes to show that not everything that we think is real is actuality, but that the movie is sort of playing sort of a trick on us. With the documentary, we almost accepted at face value that what we're seeing is how things are playing out. But documentaries are their own sort of style of filmmaking. They do rely on a lot of narrative elements to ultimately work and function, which I think this film does, in the sense of creating divisions amongst the bodybuilding community that are all dedicating themselves to be on top. Another thing that you learn after the fact within this film actually is that they had to minimize a lot of the footage that was shown to where like the bodybuilders were all embracing each other. A lot of the scenarios that we see that I would venture to guess are staged are like when Lou Ferrigno's dad is congratulating Arnold in front of his son at breakfast. I mean, this whole exchange felt super awkward, yet part of me now, after learning that fact, feels like maybe this was intended just to add a little spice to the recipe of the film. With the film, it just shows bodybuilding for what it is and not much more than that. It doesn't really go into any of the ethical implications of what these bodybuilders have to do to maintain their shape, maintain their figure. Sure, it shows their dedication to the gym and the fact that they are taking these trips to different countries to compete in front of each other. But I would have liked to see more of what they must have felt like, just being enamored by these audiences, and like what that does to their ego. But again, this film takes a very observational approach. It takes this fly in the wall approach where it lets the action sort of play out as it does, and it chooses not to be obtrusive in their lives. Showing the darker elements of this sport might have been worth mentioning, I guess. Specifically when it comes to the fact that like steroid use and performing enhancing drugs were unregulated at the time. If I were somebody that really idolized any of these bodybuilders and I wanted to do it myself, and I dedicated myself to the gym and I cut a bunch of weight, strict diet and everything, and I still didn't find the results that I was looking for, it's probably the fact that I could have used a little help in the PED department, and taken the juice. But that's not really showcased here. That's just kind of maybe something that was swept under the rug. And I mention that it's because it's like because someone might be frustrated that they think they're doing all the right things because they're working out like crazy and stuff, but they're not seeing the gains that these bodybuilders have. And it's probably because of that missing element of, the fact that they're not injecting themselves with steroids, plain and simple. Again, this film didn't really have an agenda to do that. It just wanted to humanize these bodybuilders in such a way that we don't see bodybuilding as this like freak show, but we see it in such a way that it's simply a dedication to a craft. I will say there was a interesting note that I read about this film where after principal photography was wrapped, the filmmakers had run out of money and were about $35,000 in debt. So in an effort to fundraise for this film, they decided to hold an art exhibit at the Whitney Museum, which included a lot of the bodybuilders from this film. And that exhibit and the paying audience helped fund the finishing funds for this film. So I found that part to be kind of interesting. Things to consider about this film is that it changes your perception on the sport of bodybuilding, and it highlights the larger-than-life personality of Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I think that about sums it up right there. So hopefully you like this. I'm planning to do more and more of them, trying to get the workflow down and all that good stuff. But thank you for watching this. I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace out.